Hello and welcome to this new series of Masterclass sessions where I'm joined by some of our favourite lender relationships, and we'll be asking them to highlight exactly why they are so great and why, importantly, working with a partner like Crystal should be in every UK broker's toolkit. We will spend the next 40 minutes or so discussing how brokers can convert more deals and, crucially, how they can save more time by understanding processes better. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Nicola Ashby, who represents the mortgage lender. And Nicola, I'd like to welcome and say hello, and maybe just touch on a little bit about what you do at the mortgage lender, and also just high level where TML have historically actually played in terms of the mortgage marketplace. But hello and welcome.
Hi, thank you. Yes, so as Jason said, Nicola from the Mortgage Lender. I am the Midlands BDM here at TML. I've been here for just over 2 years now, so starting to become part of the furniture, if you can say that. Very high level. So the Mortgage Lender, we are owned and funded by Shawbrook Bank. Specialist lending, so predominantly residential. I know we'll touch on it, but sort of credit impairment and affordability, and then complex buy-to-let on the other side of things.
You know what? I mean, the starting point for each of these sessions, Nicola, have really been about flexibility. And I suppose what we're trying to root out with these sessions is, the magic dust and what sets lenders apart, but also just, what is those real unique elements. And lenders talk about flexibility and they talk about, what they can and where there is going to be maybe some slight edges. What would you say in terms of TML when it comes to flexibility?
Obviously, as we just briefly touched on, credit impairment is a big area of our lending, which is flexible in itself in terms of not a lot of the market do it. So there's definitely flexibility there in terms of the product ranges that we offer and the amount of credit or adverse that we allow. The second part to flexibility with TML is complex incomes. So what we try and do is look at everyone's circumstances as fairly as we can. Not everybody has the same situation these days. And if it makes sense, we will look to do it. So although we have a lending policy, as every lender does, it's not as black and white for ourselves. We do encourage that you speak to your BDM or the telephone support team, any sort of outside of policy exceptions we can look at, anything that makes sense.
In terms of like differentiators from maybe some of your competitors, what maybe helps you stand out? So I know you talked about little bits of flexibility there, but how do you set yourself apart and differentiate yourselves?
The types of income that we take is probably one of the biggest areas. So self-employed is a huge area of lending that TML take in the market, really. Compared to other lenders, the way we take the income is a lot more beneficial. So, for example, we will use profit before corporation tax for limited company, which is obviously massive, especially with corporation tax going up. On top of that, we'll do 1 year's trading, latest year's figures guaranteed, all of that kind of stuff. CIS is a big area of lending that we do as a lender. Everyone wants to be treated as employed, of course, which is how we look at them. But where we differentiate ourselves is the length of time. So we would only need you to be CIS contracting for 3 months, as long as you have a 12-month employment history. It's not as black and white now with people working for the same employer for years and years. People switch about and change job roles. So we try and take a common sense approach on that as we can.
As mainstream lenders start and continue to marginalise maybe the self-employed, that's a real important aspect, isn't it? And I know we're really optimistic at Crystal about what the landscape looks like in a specialist space for the next 3 years. And does that seem to be a similar kind of outlook within TML? So lots of opportunities.
Yeah, I think TML are sort of taking the opinion that specialist lending isn't so specialist anymore. Now, what I mean by that is maybe that before we were very niche and it was for a specific scenario, but everybody has a specific scenario now. So somebody who may have been high street lending 5 years ago may now need to use a specialist lender, whether that be affordability, complex income, anything like that.
One of the crucial bits of support we've got to deliver to the broker audience we get at Crystal is that certainty of decision. So, when brokers have been researching the market, usually they're coming to Crystal having been down maybe a couple of dead ends with lender conversations. So that certainty of decision is really important. So, with yourself in terms of that decisioning, again, how would you say you really stand out?
So it's a very much a manual underwrite with ourselves. So you have the ability to be able to speak to an underwriter. So if you go through Crystal, the Crystal case manager will be able to do so, which means we can discuss more complex cases as we've discussed and get a bit more of a common sense approach. We provide yourselves with a specific document checklist. So the brokers can be sure when they come to Crystal that they know exactly what documents we're going to need before we submit it, which will hopefully just help the process go through a lot smoother. And we also have dedicated underwriters that are able to look at specific cases and work that way.
I mean, obviously, checklist there. Again, I think that certainty of decision is one thing, but this importance of getting things right first time. Obviously, I'm biased, but I've been both sides of the fence in my working career. So I've been on that lending side of the track, and I know how crucial it is. We've got to deliver that certainty. We've also got to make sure that we request the right things, and when we get the things in from a broker, we've got to get things right first time. So how do you how does TML perceive that? And I know it's obviously it should be a real benefit of using a business like ourselves, that checklist and that speed, because we're going to present a fully packaged case to you for you to hopefully go immediately to offer.
So we've had some recent system updates in the last few months, which means that the case won't actually get into the underwrite queue until it's fully packaged. So the benefit of using someone like yourselves who are going to fully package it is that you will be moved further along the queue in the underwrite process, rather than sitting and waiting for cases to be looked at that aren't fully packaged, and it will slow things down. So from our side of things, we've made a commitment to sort of say, look, we're only going to look at cases that are properly packaged to begin with, to avoid any delays and further SLAs there. When you submit a DIP to us, it also gives you a packaging list. So before you even submit to full application, you can go to your broker and say, look, this is what you're expected to receive or need, and get everything tied up in a little bow there.
I'm wondering about particular products. So you're obviously operating in that residential impaired space that we've spoken about, and obviously the buy to let as well, which again we'll talk about some of the challenges that have existed in that buy to let space. But particular product winners. So particular, we mentioned that complex income and the way you like to take a view on that. But I'm just wondering, within the actual product verticals, are there maybe a couple of products that maybe stand out as being particular bestsellers within the range that you've got?
Yeah, absolutely. So the residential range, as I'm sure most of you will know, sort of cascades anyway. So the heavier the adverse, the further down the product range you go. A big area of lending that we do is something that doesn't actually cascade, so it fits across the whole product range, which is our unsecured arrears piece. So on unsecured debt, we will only look at the most recent 6 months. In those 6 months, you can then have missed 2 payments on as many unsecured debts as you like. Now, the benefit to that fitting across every product range is that you're not having to sieve out what's going to work and what isn't. It will only be the defaults and CCJs that will affect the product range. So residential is very much a cascading process. It will make sense. The product guide, everyone can sort of see that on the website. Buy to let, we've got 2 great products. So we lend in the specialist buy-to-let space. So that comes with a lot of portfolio landlords and complex cases where if it fits with us, they tend to try and bring 2 or 3 to us at the same time. So we have recently launched a portfolio multi-loan product that has no application and no valuation fee. So if you're to bring 2 or more cases to us for the same customer, you'll benefit from essentially no fees on the cases, which is good if you're bringing a few. £150 a case can be quite a lot. Or there is a fee saver product. We are aware that landlords now are looking at fees on products and seeing if it's worth it, especially with capital gains tax and increased stamp duty. So there are a number of products with fees varying from 2,500 to 5%, but there is a fee saver product as well. So there should be an option for every landlord.
What kind of trends are you seeing in that buy-to-let space? Obviously, the landlords have been particularly found it hard with whether it's been regulatory change or whether it's been the taxation changes. How have you found as you've gone through this year? What have the trends actually been on buy-to-let?
Funnily enough, A lot of the feedback we've had is that the 5% fee product, albeit is a big fee, actually works out a lot better long term for landlords. I think the landscape for landlords these days is more of a long-term investment. I think the past sort of 5 to 10 years when rates were low, they were looking at a monthly income, and they were more rate driven on that. However, landlords are having to shift their mindset. They are looking at a bit of a long-term investment. So albeit the fees on the products might be slightly higher, but if that gets them the borrowing that they need, along with the capital appreciation that they're going to gain anyway, long term, it makes more sense to take those products.
What would a typical landlord, how many properties would a typical landlord maybe have with TML?
So we'll lend to anybody, first-time landlords, or otherwise. But because we have no caps in our portfolio, so it doesn't matter how many you have with TML or how many you have in the background, we do tend to lend to the larger portfolios. Like I said, generally people tend to bring more than 1, 2 at a time.
And what about maybe some case studies? I mean, quite often a picture paints 1,000 words, doesn't it? So on maybe that residential side, is there maybe a nice case study that we can bring to life? And then similarly on a buy to let, we'll have a look around there. I'm just thinking about particularly useful deals that have completed recently.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had a recent case complete in the last few weeks, actually, based around the self-employed piece. So that's probably a good place to start. So a couple came to us. They were self-employed limited company. Oh, Mr. was, sorry. Mrs. was employed. Mr. had a full-time job for the last 2 years, and then he did a bit of a side hustle, in inverted commas, on the side for 2 years prior to this. The end of last year, he took the leap of faith to go fully self-employed and put his all into it, basically. The income from the self-employed for the first full-time role that he took was £10,000, start-up costs, equipment, all that kind of stuff. But the most recent year and the second year of him trading was £216,000 on pre-tax profit. As a lender, we took a very common sense approach, looked at why the first year was a little bit lower, using the profit before tax, which was £203,000. We were able to use that whole figure for him rather than the 10,000. So the latest year figure was used, which was phenomenal in itself. Add that on top of the fact that the partner, Mrs., had 2 incomes. So she had 2 part-time jobs that she worked alongside each other, which equated to £50,000. And we were able to take 100% of both of those jobs as well. So compared to other lenders, we were able to take guaranteed latest years on pre-tax profit and both of Mrs. jobs, which was phenomenal on affordability.
That's a brilliant example when we were talking about flexibility earlier, and we're talking because that again that's off rate card. That's just a sensible and logical approach based on how a deal's actually presented to you, isn't it? So that's a great example of that flexibility, isn't it? And then what about on the buy to let side? Because again, I know people struggle with we've got affordability issues on the residential side, and then with the buy to let we have issues with the ICR, don't we? And I'm wondering, in terms of what good case studies have we got in terms of maybe recent experiences on that buy to let side?
Yeah, so we do a lot of limited company buy-to-let, albeit we do lend in the personal buy-to-let space as well. A great example that I would have is a limited company director who owned a building business, and he owned a limited company for property as well. So he was an existing landlord. What he wanted to do was buy more property in his SPV. What we were able to do was allow an intercompany loan from his limited company building business into the SPVs. It was mirrored ownership, which meant it saved him a shed load in tax, I imagine, as an intercompany loan rather than taken out as a dividend, which allowed him to go on to grow his portfolio. And subsequently, those properties ended up coming to us as well. Stress testing is very strong with us. In addition to that, any product fees on buy-to-let can exceed maximum borrowing. So this is, again, sort of reverting back to that 5% 5-year fixed product that we've got. What that allows you to do is benefit from a 5-year stress test with a 5% fee, which let's all admit, is a chunk of money. However, if you can add that on top of your maximum borrowing, you're not actually losing out in any way. So he also took that, which benefited from the better stress test.
I mean, I think what we see in the clear is it's not necessarily about the price in the buy to let. Look, it's got to be competitive, but it's just about, can they get the loan that they actually need to move things forward. So an extra 10 grand, 15 grand's worth of loan size, just by being a bit flexible with how it's underwritten, makes a huge difference, doesn't it? And how do you, what's the outlook for landlords moving forward then into next year? I mean, again, what we're seeing as a business, we're seeing, certainly more landlords are actually professionalising themselves. So they're getting their affairs in order. So if they've got maybe a dislocated portfolio where they've got some in individual names, some in SPVs, they're actually just amalgamating and having a consistent approach. So whether that's for inheritance taxpayer purposes, in case anything happens, or whether it's for just the here and now taxation purposes, just so they've got all their affairs in order. So we're definitely seeing this professionalisation, and we are observing this real ambitious, I suppose it is by age range, maybe 25 to 40 kind of age range, where they are taking that view you mentioned around it being a long-term business strategy that they've actually got with property, and they're super hungry, they're super, they really do want to not just play at this, they want to have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 portfolios. So what's your observations, and what's the TML observations and forecasts as we go into next year?
Mirrored to what you've just said, if I'm honest. So TML are very positive about the buy-to-let market. I appreciate there's been a lot of changes with stamp duty and capital gains, etc. But there is definitely a place in the market for a professional landlord. And like we've just said, somebody who's looking at it a bit more of a long-term investment. It's everywhere now. You're all encouraged to invest your money, think long-term, do what you can. And I think the younger generation, sort of 30 to 40 bracket, are definitely benefiting from that. So we're positive. I think there's definitely a place for buy-to-let in the market. I think people just need to be a little bit more strategic about it now, which is where lenders like us that do a lot more of the complex stuff come into play. We do lend to a lot of mature landlords though. So because we will lend up to 95 at end of term, if you've got anybody that is inheritance tax planning or buying properties with children or grandchildren, they can benefit from that with a lender like us. So again, it's just giving everybody an option: the younger bracket, first-time landlord, or the mature professional landlord.
Great. That makes sense. I'm going to reference a few of the broker questions we've actually got now, if that's okay, in advance. And the first question, you've done a good job at answering this already, really, but I just wonder if there's anything you want to just either re-emphasize or just enhance from what you said, because it's to do with the complex income structures. So we know that you've got that flexible approach, and you really will take a can-do approach with it. But Scott's asking, how does TML approach cases with complex income structures, like self-employed clients or those with multiple income streams? So as I say, I know you've already answered this in many ways, but just wonder if there's anything else you'd want to add and enhance.
Yeah, I guess I would just echo, as we keep saying, the two words common sense approach. Absolutely. We will look at things such as plausibility and sustainability, which, if they both tick the box, then there's no reason why we can't consider that income. I would just encourage to go to a specialist packager like yourselves, who are able to speak to us directly and get that decision over the line, rather than submitting a case with a lender that might not agree it.
I just think that ability to save time by using a business like ourselves, and I'm biased, but look, we've got 52 lenders who we've completed business with this year, and we have got that whole of market approach, but I just know we can deliver that certainty, and we can just save time with the research. Next question from Sean. He's curious about just TML's product range. It serves. So, Sean, it's curious. So, TML's product range serves niche needs, especially in buy-to-let or adverse credit. But again, he's asking around the standout products. So what you said earlier. So certainly on that buy-to-let side, we've got that. So that fee saving product. So the fact we've got so much choice, I think, is a real USP, particularly in that buy-to-let side of things. That fee saving, the no application fees as well. is there anything else? So in terms of yeah, it's curious about how TML. So just read this clearer. Sean is curious about how TML's product range serves niche needs, especially in buy-to-let or adverse credit. So as I said, we've like the first question, we've kind of touched
Yeah.
on lots of what's already been said. But how would you probably again just expand or enhance maybe some of the answers?
I guess I would expand by just saying we give option, is probably the biggest way. So the residential adverse, like I said, it cascades. So that will fit a box. Each product is made to allow a certain level of adverse. So there's an option there right up for somebody who has 4 active defaults and 3 active CCJs in the last 3 years we can lend on. So there is a huge scale of option there. Buy to let, we lend in 2 and 5 year. As we've touched on, there's fee saver options, there's multi-loan option, multi-property options, HMO, multi-unit, expat, holiday let, you name it, we can pretty much consider it. So option is probably the adjective I would use for our product range.
What appetite? So as we go into a new year, I mean, again, we see, and I call them lenders or pretenders, and we get many lenders come towards us declaring incredible ambitions, but then you try them out with a few deals, and guess what? They've certainly not got that flexibility, and they've not got that can do that we've kind of touched on with TML having as we have the conversation. Yeah, ambitions as we go into 2025 and beyond. What's the appetite like?
Huge. The appetite is huge. I think we appreciate that the market may have shrunk slightly, but our area of the market has definitely grown. As we spoke about at the beginning, specialist lending probably isn't as niche as it once was anymore. People need to use us a little bit more. So we are ambitious. We're looking to grow as always. We're £1 billion lender, so people are definitely using us, and there is definitely a place for us in the market. Obviously, we have Shawbrook backing now, which is great. We've got funding behind us to improve criteria and products, and there are a lot of changes that are coming, hopefully in Q2 and 3 next year, which you'll all hear about, I'm sure, as it comes through. Yeah.
Those application products you've actually got really do deliver some brilliant solutions for the brokers as well, because just like you, we back ourselves to get to completion, so we don't charge anything up front, which is unique. So by using Crystal as we move forward with some of these TML cases, it literally it's all about funding. It's all about that completion. So we're all, everybody's focused on that, that end outcome, which is crucial. I'm just wondering about just if there's any other magic dust really, before we final couple of questions. So in that, that residential and that impaired credit market, we've got this beautiful cascade. So we've got this ability to, if there is a skeleton in the closet, if there's something that's not quite maybe been understood or we've been aware of, something comes out later in the process, there's an ability to obviously cascade from product to product. I'm obviously biased, and I would say the best possible cascade is being able to cascade from lender to lender as well as that product to product. So I think we've got a brilliant solution there. And then on that buy to let side, we've got this that beautiful suite of options in terms of whether it's a fixed fee or whether it's a fee saving product. There really is some choice to tailor a solution for the actual landlord. We've established there's loads of appetite. So as we go into the new year, whether it's that marginalisation of the self-employed to the self-employed people who are maybe not necessarily going to fit that mainstream market, we've got lots of appetite and desire and some real uniqueness to deliver a placement for them. And then with that buy to let, we've got so much choice. Is there anything in terms of other magic dust, other special sauce that exists with TML? Look, we like working with you because there is that can-do approach. There is that certainty at day one. We don't get messed about. If we need to escalate, there's visibility, so people are there to actually support us, and we feel like they're pulling in the same direction as us, which is always crucial. So I always see that escalation as being a real bit of magic sauce to the partnership that exists. Is there anything else that you'd want to maybe get out that I've maybe not asked a question on, or
Yeah,
something
I
that is
think
just really important to you?
Just sort of echoing quickly up the back of what you said in terms of using TML, obviously Crystal have a dedicated account manager that you're able to liaise with on complex cases. So that definitely gives you guys an edge in terms of being able to discuss things up front. I guess the last thing I just want to mention, I did touch on it, is the manual underwrite. Now, I know that a lot of people sort of fear a manual underwrite. We're in a world now where we want quick answers and automated offers. But when we lend in the specialist lending space, as we've touched on, not everything is black and white, and a manual underwrite can be a huge benefit. And a lender like us, where we can sit down and have a conversation and talk a case through, is huge. That will be the difference, being able to get a mortgage for your customer or not. So that's probably the special sauce to us.
Don't say no, ask how. That's what
Absolutely.
that's what we have as a mantra within the business. Well, listen, I'm really grateful for your time today, Nicola. I think having a partnership with a lender who does have that flexible and consistent approach is really important to us, and having some unique bits of criteria that stand out, coupled with escalation to get stuff fixed as and when is needed, is a real valuable part to the partnership. So look, I wish you lots of success, and thank you very much for your time today, and good luck for the next, for the new year.
Thank you so much.